Okay, I think it says recording, so I think we're good, hopefully.
Hmm.
Well, welcome everybody. So do we know for sure if Bobette's coming or not, or
I don't.
yeah, that's okay. Allow.
Oh, cool. Good work.
I have just it's very brief, it's just a couple slides. But it was just to help us if in case we needed it to kind of go over this reading for this week. And I
Um,
think we're gonna do another one of these meet and greets.
I think so.
Yeah, so this is kind of the I guess the topic of the day is what is biomedicine?
can
See.
we sorry,
Go ahead.
just a moment. Can we introduce ourselves?
Yes, that's actually part of the thing. Absolutely.
Oh, that's what you're getting to. Oh,
Yeah, no, it's all good. Um, Go ahead, David, if you wanna start.
okay. So I'm in Alaska. I'm in the College of Pharmacy, and we have an Alaska campus. Oh, cool. Um, that's all I got. I'm in my third year of pharmacy. So you guys are all also graduate students. I'm really interested.
Yeah, I can go. So I'm Corey Parsley. I'm part-time, so technically I'm kind of in my fourth year taking one class pretty much a semester, getting my anthropology grad degree. And my interests are bioarchaeology and medical anthropology, but it's like once you start learning new topics in anthropology, everything becomes an interest, honestly. So, but yeah, and I'm in Boise, Idaho, so I'm not actually located in the Pocatello campus.
Thank you. I can share my bit, I guess. I am in this is probably my last actual class as a grad student here. My interests
Nice.
are medical, biological, bioarch. I love archaeology and history. Currently, I'm also a part-time grad student here. I'm actually a practicing PA, specializing in family medicine psychiatry. So I'm in the thick of biomedicine. Um, and I am in California, Northern California, in a rural area
Wow.
called Ukiah. It's about 3 hours north of San Francisco, but still about 6 hours north of us to the border because it's such just a long, long state.
Gotcha. I'll go last. So I'm Cursa Alleman. I've had a few classes with Larry and Corey. I was going part-time, and then this is my second semester going full-time, doing a master's in anthropology, specifically in more so like the cultural side of things. And I took this class as an elective, but also because I really enjoy um, this subject because a lot of it is like things that I was raised with um, on a centennial farm here in Idaho. So I'm in the Pocatello area.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
So I guess we have about, half an hour or so to look at this article. Anybody want to kind of share their first comments or I don't know, anything they found particularly interesting, or if you're completely new to the topic of biomedicine, maybe?
Larry, I'm going to interrupt you for just one moment.
Yeah,
I think
please.
that Adeline has joined us.
Oh, do you see, is she added? Do I have to add her in?
No, it just says five participants now.
Oh, where's she? Maybe. Oh, I see it now. I just had to pull it down on my screen a little bit. Adeline, welcome.
Hi.
Hi. Did you want to, I guess, introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Adeline. I'm currently a Master's of Public Health student. I'm also working on my graduate certificate in medical anthropology. My research interests are related to maternal and child health, as well as like environmental and occupational health at the moment. In terms of biomedicine, um, I am interested in finding out more about herbal and medicinal practices and how they can be put to work as like a supplement to just Western medicine and science. Um, and I am currently in Twin Falls, Idaho.
Nice, thank you. Let's see. Well, welcome. So this it says Kleinman, but I'm not sure because he wasn't the author, was he? As far as I could tell from what I was looking at. Um, there's a little confused by that one because I think it was Porter in Bynum from this Rutledge encyclopedia essentially. But Kleinman, of course, he's big in like, medical anthropology. But I'm hoping that's still the right article though, that this what is science of biomedicine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like week 3.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Kleinman 1995, what is specific to biomedicine? It was like chapter 2.
Yep. Yep.
Awesome. Cool. So anybody with I don't know, first thoughts or impressions?
Um,
Yeah, go ahead.
maybe this, but just super basic. I wonder why he decided to write this. He seemed to have a lot of views against biomedicine, not supporting it and not making it seem like it was the best option. So I just was wondering where he was coming from, maybe to set the stage.
Yeah, that's a good question, right? For sure. I don't know Bynum as much, but I know Roy Porter. I've read quite a bit of his work, and he's just a historian of medicine. So I think it makes sense for him to be on the
Okay.
encyclopedia of this history of medicine. Um, a little bit, definitely you're right. Picked up on a little bit of a critique of biomedicine, which I think that makes sense in our context too. We're kind of
Yeah.
compare and contrast. Um,
Yeah, I read it 2 weeks ago, but I felt like the author was definitely trying to point out that there's like more layers and complexities to healing, and that biomedicine doesn't just, or like Western medicine or whatever. There was like another term that he had used too in place of biomedicine, but
mhm.
doesn't like bridge all of the ways in which you can heal, and that bringing in traditional practices in a lot of cultural ways is important to fully healing people, I guess, even post like medical, like post medicinal and like pre medicinal things, like things like that. So that's kind of what I got from it. So he was like heavily critiquing biomedicine and making good points of why adding all these other layers in is important to like having a healthy life.
Kind of looking at it holistically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of what I definitely got from it.
Hmm.
I kind of want to see what he called it. Yeah, okay, I looked it up, but he called it cosmological medicine versus biomedicine because it's
Oh, okay.
global medicine versus Western medicine now, like because it's become globalized. I was like looking it up on the paper because I was like, I know he called it something else.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I think they kind of really focused on Americanized sort of biomedicine more so
Yeah,
than the European type.
I agree for sure. And like what we see. And then they mentioned, I know like last semester or one of the semesters with Dr. Blatt, we kind of talked about like the good death. And he did bring that in kind of towards the end, especially with like hospice care and care after, like how people suffer in medicine and things like that. And there's no like experience, like lived experiences when it comes to like doctors asking how people are healing and things like that, which I thought was really interesting and added a lot of value to what biomedicine is in, at least in America, for sure.
Yeah, Corey, I took down the note. Um, he mentioned that suffering and death were viewed as expected and necessary in Chinese medicine. So
Ooh.
you might be more familiar with that, but it kind of really struck out to me as something that we definitely don't view.
Mhm.
in the US, like we don't have a lot of emphasis on suffering here.
No, yeah. Yeah, or even like what, you know, some of these big surgeries, like I was just thinking a lot of times, like if you just skim over it, like if somebody's just sick with a cold, doctors tend to be like, well, what are your symptoms? What do you have? Here's the medication. If it doesn't stop or it continues, please come back in, and that's it. But I was like also thinking overall, like say somebody comes in with like a major issue and requires surgery, like the longevity of healing and what that does to a person's mental state and how to heal that part too. Like doctors are often thinking of healing a specific part of a body and that's it. But there's also like issues after that healing that come with, the relationship they've built with their family at home and healing after that we don't think about, I guess, sometimes in Western medicine. So,
Right, I think you bring up a really good point of I had a family member and so they have chronic illness. They're still alive. I should rephrase that. They're in the hospital at the moment. They're very sick. But part of them having chronic illness is like their doctor actually recommended like doing it's a form of meditation as far as and to help to be at peace even though they're living in constant pain, right? And it was kind of a support group for that she joined. And so I think you do bring up like a really good point of like it's more than just the symptoms that can be observed, right? As well.
yeah.
And so I was reskimming through the article. I read it and then my brain was like, oh, we gotta dig deep. So, but I don't I don't know how I feel about when like in the article it talks about like the term you were talking about as far as like cosmo say it for me. I'm struggling.
Cosmological medicine.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it kind of feels a little like astronomy versus astrology, right? That's kind of the feel it like enacted in me. And maybe I just need to look at it neutral, right? But it it almost was like devaluing, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it just depends on where you're coming from, like your epistemology, right? Of what causes disease.
Right.
And if, in biomedicine, we're really strong intertwined with the sciences. So we like to have some sort of biomarker or something to help us determine, what's going on with you.
Well, and I looked up cosmos too. So cosmos
Mhm.
is a Latin word and it's like a Greek word. Cosmos means world, universe, order, good order, government, and world order. So it makes me think like they were trying to say like now, or the author was trying to say like now biomedicine is linked to like governmental practices and what they kind of dictate for the state. So I'm wondering if that's kind of what they meant when they made that term, I guess.
Yeah, that's another good point too, right? Because
Yeah.
medicine is highly regulated.
Mm,
So there's a lot of legal aspects,
yeah.
as far as like what you can do, who can do it, and in what settings. Yeah, so that's a good point too. And that's tied into other things, right? Like how do you even say something's a disease, right? There, you can't just willy-nilly. You have to link it to an actual diagnosable disease, right? Like from the DSM or from the ICD-9 codes, right? So we have all these things you have to link it to if you want to get like reimbursed by insurance or anything, or yeah, be able to apply it to get funding from Medi-Cal or what have you.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, you see that intertwining there.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that the term makes sense considering um what the author was discussing, since they did make multiple points about how biomedicine isn't purely objective anymore because it's being shaped by culture and history and social factors. So it does tie into that aspect of government, especially if they're mentioning more on the American side of healthcare and biomedicine, because it's a superpower in the world, then it's everywhere now. So it makes sense that they would focus more on that um, country's biomedicine versus focusing on other areas that don't have as big of an impact.
I'm definitely linking it. I think, Corey, and I appreciate you defining it because it kind of helps like make it a little more neutral instead of like almost, I don't know, where like again, this is the cultural anthropologist in me, right? Of that it's like, no, it can still have value, but then also scientifically, it's like, yeah, we want it to be able to be proven, right? Like we don't want something being done and it actually being worse, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
like that materialism to link it to as well. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
That we
Yes.
they talked about the article, like to see things that are objective, hopefully, if we're going to be trying to, make it like science based or other systems. And yeah, they may not use that, right? They might be more importantly linked to like spiritual things as part of their cosmology, or maybe both too, right? There's a lot of us that are kind of like that, right? They did mention a close link between biomedicine and monotheism and how like, oh, there's one objective truth, there's one way to be versus other systems that might be more pluralistic and see, um, you know, two systems in one that are both valid and kind of using both of them together, like maybe more in Chinese medicine mixing with Western medicine. I mean, we do that too in biomedicine too, but it's, I guess, not as obvious. It's closer to home.
I think that for those of us that are in Idaho, it's a little different than if we were in a bigger state with a higher population, just because we have more of a rural population, and being more rural, you have more access to alternative or traditional healing practices from people who might be like, oh, we use this plant, like grandma said, let's use it for this, versus being in a very urban area where you're most likely going to be around clinics and health facilities instead of being out in the open where you can gather plants.
Yeah, that's true.
As far as location and access. Absolutely.
But even on that note, like our rural areas, at least because I've come from health insurance, the rural areas don't really have good access to, like, if they are wanting to seek like hospital medical care, um, of a certain, even of a certain age, like say you're a senior and you don't have transportation, those folks often tend to suffer more and might need to rely on areas of like more traditional medicine. But if they don't even have that, it really makes it hard for them.
Yeah.
Depending on the belief system too, because like even if they did have it, some people don't want to rely on like herbalism and naturalism and all that kind of stuff, like homeopathic type stuff for healing.
And then we also have, like, on the opposite side, the people that will refuse to go and get checked by a doctor, and they'll prefer using their plants and whatever they've been doing for generations.
Yeah.
Yeah, certain people would definitely be more worried about, what does it mean to go into a clinic, right? Like, what are they going to do with my information? Are they going to harm me because of, yeah, there has been history there, right? Of sort of medicine and policy kind of going together and doing harm on people when it shouldn't be. Or like maybe not giving them consent when they're being sterilized, things like that, or doing experiments like the Tuskegee one where they did that one with the syphilis long term. I don't know if you've heard of that one, where basically they were following these pilots, African American, over a course of time to see like what were the long term effects of syphilis. And it wasn't until the late 20th century that they were notified that, hey, this was an experiment they were doing for several decades.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
right. So I'm in the army, so I know when they asked us to sign up for experiments, I'm always like, no, thanks, no consent there. I'm good.
That's awful. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's horrible, right?
Yeah. My fiance, he was in the military and he told me like it's like part of like when he was going through boot camp, he's like, you didn't ask, you just took the shot and continued on. And I was like, oh no. Mm-mm. I'd be like, what in the actual hell are you putting in me? Like, and I say that from a place of like, I try to have a little bit of balance in both. And I say that like I appreciate and use modern medicine extensively because of all things to suck at. I suck at breathing. Thank you, asthma. But I also come from like generational, um, like family members on both sides that like, no, you go to a doctor to die, right? Like that's just their
Yeah,
perspective,
that's true.
right? So yeah, it's interesting how consent in medicine is like it's a huge factor. And I definitely think in some things it's gotten better, right?
Hmm.
Um, but in some areas, I think it's still like a little wishy-washy, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
For sure.
yeah, Chris, I liked what you're saying. Like, there is some sort of like skepticism. Larry, you mentioned it too. Like, I don't want to be a part of an experiment, just based off of the historical context of like Tuskegee trials. But so I guess my thought kind of continuing that is like, do we fall back on biomedicine? Is it kind of like what we do when we can't solve our problems through, other means? And we kind of keep that skepticism until we need it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a spectrum of any sort of like disease, let's say. And the more that we know about it and we have like effective treatments, the more we'll kind of lean into it. But there's other areas where we don't know as much. So we have, you know, more willingness to, I think, to try other things. Like there's a lot of like chronic diseases that people don't really understand, right? Maybe like long COVID, chronic fatigue syndrome. They're like, what is causing this? And nobody can tell them exactly what it is, or certain pains, right? So, yeah, I think there's a lot more tolerance and interest in alternative methods where if it's, maybe your appendix and you need a surgery right now, like you're gonna be like, well, maybe I'll just do that, Like I know about this, I know what's causing it, I know a solution, so yeah, I think it really depends on what's going on with a person. That's at least from one aspect of it, at least.
Yeah, I agree, sort of, but
Uh-huh.
most people can't explain diabetes or like the flu.
Oh,
I
true.
feel I feel like maybe it's just like word of mouth or like that's one of the ones you can trust. Like, go ahead and trust that medicine, not some other medicine. But
Yeah.
like, could you really explain what's happening?
Yeah, diabetes is a really good one, right? Because there's a lot of misinformation out there too about like what causes it, what's going to harm. Like I've had a lot of patients who are straight up worried about starting insulin because they've known people that once they start insulin, they die essentially, right? Or
Oh, geez.
Oh,
um, yeah, which, that's not necessarily true at all anymore. You can, be on insulin indefinitely and die to something totally different, right? If you control your diabetes really well. But yeah, there's a lot of misinformation about it. Or what caused it. Fright is another common misconception. Like you were very scared and that triggered your diabetes at one point. Um, yeah, but it's strange stuff for
Well, and is
sure.
there like a misconception too with biomedicine that biomedicine is here to create longevity in life?
Mm, yeah.
Like we still have such an issue and fear around dying as it is that people are like, well, this, if I take these medicines, it's going to create like longevity. When it's like, you don't really know like what the body's doing all the time and creating within you all the time. Like, you know, change in DNA sequencing or whatever can cause all kinds of cancers and things like that. And the environment has all these factors and stuff too. So I think a lot of it is like fear and the spread of the internet, like misinformation on the internet, and just like not actually helping people through coping with, like the author said, like suffering and healing and all that kind of stuff too. It's like if there was just more topics and conversation around death and things like that, like would people be more open to try all different facets of things, like not just biomedicine, but traditional medicines in other cultures and all these different things like herbs and stuff. So I don't know.
And I think that's a big point of like, it's one thing to have knowledge of something and different to be able to communicate it to a specific group at a level at which everybody's coming to. This is a quote, but like the pool of shared meaning, right? That everybody is understanding rather than it's like two people are in the same room, both speaking the same language, but because of the education difference or the background difference or whatever the difference may be, right? That they're not understanding.
So related to that, I'm sorry, I just got a notification saying about 10 minutes left on my Zoom that I'm allowed to use. The last thing that the assignment calls us to do is to think of some differences between biomedicine and other forms of medicine. So that's kind of related to that. Anybody got anything that comes right off the top of their head?
Well, biomedicine uses more technology and pharmaceuticals and testing for diagnosis and treatment, whereas as the other ones, the alternative and herbal ones, they might focus more on wanting to find out um, who was involved or when it started or what other things the person was doing instead of just focusing on certain little pieces of the person.
Yeah, I had written down like a couple things. I put like they're focusing on like the reaction of the medicine so that they can test the medicine and like how the symptoms persist or like get better, I guess. So they're more interested in like the data, I guess, behind it.
Yeah, and their treatment course. Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see that they need numbers and not, patients' subjective information about how they feel.
Yeah.
Biomedicine also has more authority and influence than the other ones do now.
Yeah, definitely like a widespread appeal. And not everywhere, of course, but it's definitely had a lot of influence around the world.
Especially because they're actually more regulated. You can't really regulate how people use the plants as much.
That's
I
true. I
think,
definitely feel like biomedicine also like factors in a little bit of like they expect people to get addicted. So it's like they thrive, especially the pharmaceutical companies kind of thrive on like addiction more so than some of the other ones. It's like hard, I feel like, to get addicted to plants for the most part. I mean, I guess you can get addicted to weed, but it's just like, I don't know. Like a lot of biomedicine is out for money.
yeah, industry is definitely closely tied with it. It's all run, especially in the US, right? Not other places quite as much, but the US definitely is like capitalism, right? You're gonna make a lot of money making drugs and having people go to the hospital and doing treatments. And, if it's a socialized system, they're definitely working a little bit harder on trying not to have it cost so much for everybody, right? Which is a huge difference between like American system versus like a Western European system.
Well, and I wonder, like, I haven't read anything about, it, but I wonder if you could lump in like some of this like cosmetic surgery into biomedicine, like this need to change how you look as part of biomedicine. Anyway, I just like it just kind of like I just had like a weird thought because it has been getting like so big. But
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think it would count just because it's to some extent cosmetic surgery is kind of treating the person's mental and emotional health slash state of mind. Because some of the people that, especially the ones that are going with like drastic plastic surgery or that are
yeah,
apparently addicted to plastic surgery,
right.
more of a mental health thing for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, botulinum toxin, you can use that to cure incontinence, right? And that's like really medical use of it. You could also do like twitches on your face, which is kind of cosmetic and kind of really medical, and then you get to the point where you're just, moving out wrinkles.
Yeah.
So it definitely blends. I
It's
like
kind of
I like
like
that point.
that line kind of starts to get blurred with time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like.
Medicine almost becomes recreational. I don't know.
Oh, that feels weird, but it kind of accurate at the same time, though.
What do y'all think of those newer medications like Ozempic and Wegovy?
Well, what comes to mind when I think about that is like obesity, is that a disease? Because it's not classified as one, right? But we would love to treat it so you don't get another disease.
Yeah. I think I was like watching something that the symptoms of like obesity are considerably higher than like the repercussions of taking one of those drugs.
Hmm.
So like, you're lowering heart disease, all these different things if you take it. I mean, I don't think there's still enough studies done on it, but I
Yeah, it's
mean,
incredible. Yeah, some people like being able to reverse their diabetes and maybe get off hypertension medicines or even cholesterol ones too at the same time.
yeah. So I think I mean, that's definitely a big deal because those medications, like the longevity of those aren't probably always great either. But I don't know. I think that's just another thing too that people can get easily addicted to. I mean, we're seeing that in mainstream media with celebrities overdoing it by taking some of those things that they're getting so thin that I mean, it looks like it's unhealthy. Granted, I'm not their doctor, so I don't know if they actually are unhealthy or not, but it does beg the question of like from one spectrum to the other, from being obese to being severely underweight, the deficiencies that you're causing because of that too. So,
And the long term effects.
right.
Yeah,
We have about a 2-minute warning, just so you know. Sorry, I don't have like the long version of. I don't know if any of you do. I
I
just signed a
do.
regular account. So
Yeah.
anybody,
Okay.
I don't know, final thoughts as we're getting close to the end. I'm really hoping I recorded this right.
I think you
I
did
think so.
because it's showing the little record
Okay.
icon. So I think you're good.
Yeah.
Um,
When
and
you
I
stop, a window will pop up asking you if you want to download it to the cloud or to the computer, and I recommend downloading it to your computer.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, I have to record all this kind of stuff at work all the time. I work for the state, so we record meetings, and we're in legislative season, so
Okay.
yeah.
I've noticed sometimes things don't upload super well into Moodle. So I have had to just email instructors as well. Because otherwise it's like Moodle's like, this is going to take 3 days. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah. Ugh.
okay.
Oh, do you upload to YouTube and then just send a link?
Oh,
I might do that. That's what I've done before too. Yeah.
Yeah,
good idea.
Larry, thank you so much for organizing
Yeah.
this and
Yeah, of
putting
course.
this together. Really appreciate you.
Yeah, it's nice having the slides. I didn't think about doing that for like the one I had with the undergrads.
Oh, I'm doing that one tomorrow morning.
That was an excellent pro tip. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just glad it was helpful.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
So when do we need to meet for the second graduate meeting that we have to do about the assignments for the week?
Good question.
I don't know yet.
Sorry, that's my dog drinking in the background. Let me just mute that.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how many of these we do. I thought it was only two of them, but maybe I'm wrong.
It looks like we meet March 3rd through April 12th is the option for the next one. And that, yeah, like Adeline said, that's to plan our content for week 15.
Oh, okay, okay.
So yeah, we might have to end up having more than one meeting especially if we only have a 40-minute window or something to talk.
All right, everybody. I guess I'll stop share because it's about to go out. So
Thanks, Larry. Thanks,
yeah,
guys.
thanks everyone, and
Thank
hey,
you.
have a great
Thank you
weekend.
for sharing. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, likewise. Happy
See
Valentine's
you
Day, I guess.
later.
Bye,
Happy
everybody.
Valentine's
Yeah,
Day.
happy Valentine's Day. Bye.